We've got some new merch dropping, so stay tuned until the end.
We do have a warning this morning from the U.S. military about the new Joker movie. There could be potential violence at theaters that are showing the film.
Counter-terrorism cops with automatic weapons flank the entrance to the theater at glitzy Lincoln Center.
Some people don't want to see it, don't even want to read about it.
It's divided people who haven't even seen it yet. I give it 4 to 5 stars.
Okay, interesting.
I don't think I've seen so much intense discourse around a movie in a long time, and it's gotten pretty out of hand at this point. And I want to leave all that intensity for the end and just talk about the movie as a movie. Now let me tell you guys, I want more comic book movies like Joker. And now before we start, I want to recommend an audiobook for you all to listen to, and that audiobook is How to Shoot Video That Doesn't Suck. The DP of the film Joker is Lawrence Sher, and he's worked with the director Todd Phillips before on various occasions. Now this video is made possible by Audible as they sponsored it, but I do recommend this audiobook because I always talk about how stories are so important, but no matter how good a story is, it means nothing if there's nothing visually appealing to back it up, at least in filmmaking, and that is the biggest strength Joker has.
I've been fortunate enough to make 6 movies with Todd. On this movie, more than any we've done before, we would just constantly remind ourselves there's no compromise here. This has to be the best thing we've ever done.
I do think that this audiobook is really helpful for people who can't afford film school and want to know the fundamentals of shooting video. Audible is a service that provides not just this, but countless audiobooks, as you all know, from filmmaking to actual narratives to biographies, and you can listen on the go anywhere. Audible Originals is also a program with content made exclusively for members, and credits roll over every month, and if you guys take advantage of this offer I'm about to give you, you can get this audiobook for free. Just go to audible.com/browntable and use the code browntable or text browntable to 500-500 to get started on your 30-day Audible trial and get your first audiobook plus 2 Audible Originals. The link is in the description down below. Click it right now, baby, or maybe watch the video first and then click it. So I watched Joker with a friend who's really into photography, and he said that the visual direction, shot composition, and cinematography was brilliant, which was interesting because he's not a huge fan of superhero movies at all. I think he's only seen Black Panther and Endgame, and he's never talked to me about those films visually, but this one he did, and I want to state why this is important. Joker looks and feels like a movie, and not a summer blockbuster superhero flick. Do you get what I mean? Not to say that summer blockbusters are bad in any way, it's just that this feels different, and I think that's why people keep saying that it's not a comic book movie. But why people say it's not a comic book movie is because recently, comic book movies have the same feel, the same fluffy feeling of fun and epic battles and good old heart, and this movie has none of that. It's a psychological crime drama, and it isn't really trying to be anything like most superhero comic book films. And again, I want to state that just because something is fluffy and fun and epic doesn't mean it's bad. I'm just saying that this is different. But here's the thing. Just because you're different doesn't mean you're good. So is Joker good? Yes. But not by much. I think Todd Phillips is a good director, I just think he's very, very restrained, and he didn't really try much of anything original with this film. I think the way he handles shots with the help of Sher makes for one of the best looking comic book films ever made, and there's this morbid feeling, and honestly, every shot, everything feels disturbing, as the protagonist is a disturbed man, and it's genuinely f***ing awesome. There's not much else to say. The movie looks like a movie, it feels like a movie, it's truly beautiful. There's so many absolutely gorgeous shots, tracks, rack focusing. There's a scene in a subway where it's all handheld and you completely feel as if you were in there. Also, parts of the film were filmed in New York, and that's crazy. They also didn't even have to do much because New York looks like shit at night anyway. By the way, Gotham has never felt so raw and violent in years, and this really feels like a mean Gotham. This movie feels grimy, and even during daylight hours, and that's excellent set design.
I love the way that Gotham looks in this movie.
The sirens sound different. They don't sound like New York sirens, and that was another tall order that Todd wanted. We were supposed to make Gotham.
But then we get to the story. The story, I've read a lot of reviewers say is pretentious, and I mean sure, but I honestly think most films are. The film to me does feel like it thinks it's smarter than it actually is, if you get what I mean. The story's incredibly simple and some elements are rather predictable, but it's how a movie executes simple ideas that makes a movie good or bad, and for the most part, the movie feels very fresh and it executes its ideas rather well. Still though, it is a bit melodramatic. I think the film's commentary on society and mental illness though, while interesting and important, is rather weak, and I think a lot of reviewers are focusing on that aspect to criticize. I do excuse the film for not being a bigger commentary on social issues even though the movie revolves around them, because the movie comes from the perspective of a, as he literally phrases it, mentally ill loner. I adore how the film is a first-person narrative, so there aren't any scenes with other characters interacting on their own, it's all from Joker's perspective. There's also a few scenes that feel like they're straight out of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty or something, and I particularly enjoyed those. I think the reason the film mostly works is because of Joaquin Phoenix, and yes, to reiterate, I feel like my boy deserves an Oscar nomination for this. I thought the dialogue in this movie was really bleh at times, but Phoenix absolutely makes every single line convincing. Even the cringy line, "I thought my life was a tragedy, but it's actually a comedy," feels raw as hell in the film. At a point in the film, he says society. Like he actually says society. Like we live in a society, he says society, and it's not cringy. It feels kind of deep, and that's what great acting is. Taking a mediocre script and making it feel bigger than it is, and that's what the film feels like. When you finish watching it, you feel like it's something bigger than yourself, and I think people have noticed that even before it's released. That's why so many people are worried that certain people will start acting like the Joker and commit crimes and such, even though the movie very obviously does not condone the actions of the Joker. The thing is, the film can't express that too far because the narrative is from the Joker's perspective. The Joker is a nihilist character in this film and resorts to violence as a response to what happens in his life, and I've seen people criticize the film for acting as if violence is the only way out, and it's not. But again, the movie is from the perspective of the Joker, of a mentally deranged person. The film doesn't present another option because he as a character cannot see one. And it's also not like the movie ends terribly. There's a glimmer of hope, and if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. On the character of Joker, it reminded me a lot of Nightcrawler, the movie Nightcrawler, not the character Nightcrawler, and how the protagonist in that film is the one you kinda root for even though he's a terrible person. And the reason why is because he has a charismatic personality and a great work ethic. Most importantly though, he's driven, and that's a good trait to have, but having those traits doesn't necessarily mean you're morally righteous. The same thing happens in Joker to a slightly lesser extent because he really does go crazy, but you gotta love the charisma and drive the character has, and that's thanks to Phoenix's phenomenal acting as well.
The character of Arthur is a slow burn turning into Joker, so part of the magic of Joaquin is that ability to kind of tweak the performance so that transformation happens so slowly.
Also, what makes the movie scary as shit is the music. The score of this film is composed by Hildur Gudnadottir. I completely destroyed her name. I am so sorry, please don't kill me. But the score is fantastic, it's haunting, it's almost like a horror movie, which is freaky. It feels damaged, like as if notes aren't played correctly on purpose, and it's haunting and grandiose and operatic in places, and the score weaves itself into the film naturally. It feels raw and troubled. And that's what I like about the movie. It's raw and troubled. Is it perfect? No, it's like a 7 or 8 out of 10 for me. I don't know, it could change, but it's a brilliant Oscar-worthy performance by Phoenix. He literally makes the movie. But I think what's most important to me is that this isn't Captain Marvel. This isn't Ant-Man 2. This isn't Far From Home. This isn't Justice League. This isn't Age of Ultron. This isn't Suicide Squad. This isn't commercialized. This isn't something that feels forced or cut or edited down by a studio. This feels honest and intense and provoking and almost dangerous. And that's what I want out of comic book films. Would Marvel ever consider making a movie like this? Hell no. And that's what's so great about Joker. It exists. It's out there. And I genuinely appreciate the movies made. And again, it's not a masterpiece. It isn't like some sort of thing that people should study in school when learning about story or anything like that, but I'm glad it's a thing. Now, in people thinking that the movie is bad because it could promote incel violence, we have to take into account that the movie's about a bad person and people could be inspired by it. But I personally think that it's not a movie's responsibility to cater to what is safe or sanitary. If that were the case, all movies would play things safe and films would feel redundant, and it'd just be a never-ending cycle of mediocrity and sameness. I do think that the movie should have been more morally clear, definitely, not changing the protagonist's emotions and thoughts on the way though, but I do feel like the movie should have showcased the right way to do things and how the protagonist is oblivious to this. I also think that if some sort of violent event happens in real life because of this film, that would be absolutely tragic. But I don't think we should blame media such as films and video games for violence in the real world, because we have seen, time and time again, there is no correlation. A video game or a film is not something you can grab and shoot people with, it's just an outlet. So as for Joker and incels, it's not really a problem with the film, it's a problem with people. But that's Joker, that's society, that's the society we live in. I think the movie's crazy as hell. I'd give it a 3.5, maybe a 4 out of 5, but I think I'm leaning to the 3.5 range. Also, check out Audible. It's honestly great for living in a society. They helped make this video possible, so check out the link to support the channel. It's audible.com/Browntable and use the code Browntable or text Browntable to 500-500 for a 30-day free trial. The link is in the description down below. Click the link, baby. Now before I go, I do want to announce something very, very cool, and that is merch. That's right, there is new merch in the Browntable store on Teespring, and this time we got some saucy new shirts. I think 2 more are on the way, but at the moment these 2 are what we have. We have the spectacular Spider Chad shirt, and we also have this Meow-tastic shirt, as you can see. So if you want to support the channel and buy one of those, definitely head down to the Teespring and help me out, help the channel out, help us grow, and become a Chad Nation. Now lastly, I do want to thank my patrons for supporting me. I really do appreciate everything they do. Every single dollar is used in a way to help the channel or to help me survive again through college, like I've stated multiple times in the past. Thank you all so much for watching the video. Please share it, please like it, please comment, and please remember to come back to the table.